Okay, let me know when you're ready, Nick. All this audio will be cut anyway, so.
I'm just chewing. We don't have to cut this. It's going to be our intro.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
quick
this
join
is
on
the
the
cold.
recording.
No, you're already in.
Okay.
Felix. I just have to. We get the bot in here. Well, I guess welcome back to another episode. We it's maybe been a bit spoiled now, but we are joined by a guest today. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hello. I'm Felix. I've
Mhm.
played across both campaigns, both Restro 1 and Restro 2.
A D&D
Uh,
extraordinaire.
I've been playing with the party probably for about 3 or 4 years now.
I mean, you've been playing with both Chris and I for longer than that. You were there. I mean, it would only be right to go back to one of your earlier characters when we
Yeah.
did Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, I remember.
I feel like he was he's almost like totemic for our characters.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just he's
Felix,
who's everyone's
you
measured by.
often act as the foil for some other characters, which in fun teams. If someone's too sensible, you go the opposite way.
Exactly.
And vice versa.
Very much a fun enjoyer.
You're here for a good time.
No, exactly.
As is evidenced
exactly.
by Gronk's existence.
Wow, so succinctly put. To start off with, I'd like to talk a bit about your characters. So the earliest character that you had with us was maybe not infamous, but certainly notorious. So a character that was linked to a certain wizard of mine. Would you mind telling us a bit about Grobert?
Okay, so Grobert was he's a household knight of your character, who was a wizard and was a noble, John.
Yeah.
And he had a big dream of being perceived as and having this reputation of this great knight. Small but mighty kind of vibe. But he was a goblin. He had quite an emotional journey, especially with the color green along the campaign. And with him and his trusted seed, Timmy of the West.
Timmy was a funny. I'm sure with an image, I think we hobbled together of two separate images. We'll put that up on screen here. But this is canonically what Grobert looks like. He was was he a fighter?
He was a fighter cavalier.
And he was a heavily armored goblin riding a Shetland pony. Now
he always tried his best to be noble, but at times, he let that slip.
Only a few times.
I'd say he's a pretty lawful good character throughout the campaign.
You're referring to the moment where he tried to commit highway robbery.
It was deserved. I mean, depends how you look at it.
To be fair, he learnt that from John, who had a bad case of assaulting people on the road.
I would blame the people around him rather than Grobert himself.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's kind of easy to say your first ever experience with D&D.
Grobert was my first ever long-term character.
Yeah, and what did you take away from that? When you first started playing D&D, did you have any apprehensions about it?
To be honest, I remember making the character. We just I was speaking to you about it. We just kind of rolled with it, and then you were like, "Oh, what do you want to play?" And I thought a character that was small but mighty would be quite fun to play. someone that's really small but really hedge.
God, was he mighty? You rolled like an absolute beast for Grobert.
Yeah, it's one of the best stats I've ever seen. I think he had he started with 3 18s.
Jesus Christ!
It's an absolute freak of nature.
I can only imagine that Grobert was weaned on a mix of protein powder and HRT.
He was he was weaned off dragon milk,
which we know canonically is just a steroid.
Yeah.
No, actually, I think it's lube in this world.
No, Fizz, that's dragon blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh Oh my god!
I mean, we could talk about Grobert for hours. Grobert sort of began your list of characters, and we we thought about doing some more characters that start with G. Joked around with like, oh, what about Grobert's cousin? Gennis or Gary or
I feel like it's
Gris.
canonical in this world for all goblins to have a name beginning with G.
Yeah, but it's
as it always should be.
It's not like there's no Georges or like Grahams. It's just
No.
normal names with a G put in front of it. So you've got like Gom walking around or Gomus.
Gramses the Third.
Ramses. Lovely.
And then I guess after that, like your character that you played for the Restria 1 was Jasper. What were you kind of? I mean, I guess this is probably the best time to do it. What were you doing?
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Okay, so I thought, I played an awful good character the first time around. He upheld his values most of the time, and I thought I'd spice it up a little bit, and switch up into a completely different class, completely different,
the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. Although I took it a bit too far.
I mean, what was it? Session 2 that you accused Jonah of being a paedophile and then as a heretic and tried to sell him off to the church?
Yeah, and this was after session 1, where all the younger players had been given a gold coin by a wizard, and you had extorted it out of James's character.
See, Jasper as a character, okay, he was before his time. He was ahead of the. He was surrounded by these children, so to speak, and they didn't understand his ideas, and Jonah was too backwards thinking. So he thought by getting rid of Jonah, he would be able to, get the party to their full potential.
Which was?
Well, he was going to master trade. He was
master trade.
He had a stunt
by selling off my party members.
He had to get rid of the big dog. To become the big dog, you need to be the big dog. And so, the best way of doing that is showing dominance over, the leading figure, the leading figure of the party. And so,
okay,
I think Blow would have respected that.
For Jasper to succeed, Jonah had to die, or disappear.
Oh my god! I guess after, as you guys can hear, there was a clear problem with the character that was created. In that normally when I kind of come to the games and I get players to build characters, I say the brief is, "Hey guys, please bring a hero." They give me an anti-hero. They can be like a complete goody two shoes hero, but just make them a hero, please. And Jasper clearly was a villain.
Okay. You see, he wasn't able to blossom into his full potential. But there was
he would have been like a 40k guy, Like in the end, when you looked in hindsight, it was good.
Exactly.
But man, did it seem like it was evil at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Jasper's whole thing is it's the Joe Biden. It's good for the economy.
Jasper's more like Donald Trump, actually. I know the economy. No one knows the economy better than I do. I have the best banks. They're great.
And I said to Jonah, stop.
I said, this man is a pedophile. Lock him away.
I went to the priest. The priest said hi. I said, hi, priest. This man is in danger. Oh, my word. But
after, Jasper was unsustainable. And, it was good for the party considering who you came with next. The legendary successor to Grobert. Who was he, Felix?
It was Gronk. He was a big... Instead of being small and green, he was big and green.
What a character! Like such a character development from from where you started.
Thank you. I thought this one didn't work out, so I kind of went back to my roots. switched up the class. I went with a paladin this time.
Yeah.
Kind of to keep me in track. But yeah, Gronk was a good character. You know, he was incredibly strong.
Mm-hmm.
Probably even stronger than
Incredibly
Robert.
strong.
Yeah, I feel like what was really interesting, what I've noticed is when you make characters, you tend to keep one aspect of the character you last played. So, for instance, with after you made Grobert, you made Jasper, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to make him small like Grobert. And then you realize, okay, maybe I've gone too far. Let's go back to the drawing board. I'm going to make him green again, but this time he's going to be big.
Yeah, but what aspects of Jasper survived in Gronk?
Yeah.
the youthful entrepreneurial spirit.
That's true. He did eventually join up the White Cloaks, just like
That's
Jasper
true.
did.
That's true. That is true.
I mean,
yeah, but Gronk was this nature-loving giant. Really, he was.
And with regards to Gronk's backstory, I mean, you kind of approached me with like, oh, let's. I mean, I guess the way each player kind of creates their character slightly differently in our group, largely because you're my brother and you have the most readily access to me.
I would like to vie for that position.
Well, I mean, it is now a close since Felix is up at uni.
That's true.
Far away from home. But no, at the start of the campaign, Felix was able to just like kind of walk up to me and be like, "Hey, I want a character," and then we'll just spitball ideas off each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind
What
of.
I want to know is when you made Gronk and his backstory. I was under the understanding that Gronk got kicked out of his steading.
Yeah. So
how did he get kicked out?
So I think the thing with Gronk was, the backstory came up with eventually, was that he was in a steading with other Ogier near Yzma, and then he was actually smaller than the rest of the Ogier, so he was picked on quite a lot.
Oh,
and
it
so
was consistent with your characters.
The entire thing was that he was played a cruel prank on and was left in the middle of the woods, and he didn't really know how to get back. And that is how he randomly ran into the party when they thought he was a rock.
Yeah, for context, listeners, the way that Gronk was like introduced to the party was the party rocked up on the side of a road, and a stone just turned into Gronk sleeping. That you guys mistook a boulder for Gronk's back.
Is that how? Oh my god, I don't even remember that. He was just a guy on the road, and we thought he was a stone, and then he just like had a face.
Yeah.
What the fuck? That's horrifying. Oh my god! But, I'm glad that Jonah was there, because I think if Blum had been there, he probably would have tried to kill you out of sheer surprise.
But Jonah and Gronk had a good relationship, you know.
They did. They hit it off straight away. They went out and they bought some drugs together. You know,
Eastman Spice.
They both related to the fact that they weren't children.
Exactly.
But then Jonah did have to leave because he was getting sick of having to look after his son.
Paxton.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Felix, what are your thoughts on Paxton in hindsight?
Really downgraded as the campaign went on. You know, he was really. I loved him at the start. You know, he was. Oh, let's go do this, guys. Oh, I want to be the first person there. You know, he was a risk taker. And then eventually,
Paxton was like somewhere on the spectrum at the start, and it like I don't know how it changed by the end, but he became so much more like a reasonable human being compared to the start when he was just a pain in my ass.
Yeah, I feel like the sentiment that Felix is expressing is probably best encapsulated with the fact that at the start of the campaign, Thexon was the kind of guy to jump into a boiling lake. At the end of the campaign, he was the kind of guy to lecture the table that we shouldn't go down somewhere for 4 minutes, no, for like 40 minutes before the party inevitably ignored his advice and went down anyway.
Yeah, he did a true 180 over the campaign. Very proud of his development. But that still meant that Jonah left because, you know, he didn't want to have to wait for that change. So Gronk met Blum. I think they hit it off pretty well. I mean, Blum was a businessman. Gronk was a businessman.
They were they were best of friends. You know, it was someone else. It was the only other older person in the party.
Relatively older, likes nature. Although I guess
mean,
Blum, I don't know if he really liked nature at the start.
they both had like disagreements over magic. You know,
That's
like
true.
didn't really support it or
No.
trust it that much. You know,
I mean, he saw its use. Gronk multiple times gave good evidence towards our use of magic in his application of nuclear war crimes.
Yeah. I feel like Gronk single-handedly turned religious.
I think he did. He did. It was God, it was at was it what was the city called again? Brimhold or something?
Brindle.
Brindle, that's it.
Yeah. You unleashed like a nuclear smite, which was just you rolling an at 20 and then doing like 180 damage to someone in one hit. And at that
before
point,
that as well, I remember the Hydra fight early in the campaign.
Yeah. When Yolda kind of just kind of ran through a bridge and immediately got the bridge to fall.
No, it was
Right.
yeah, it was a lot of one shots.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like at the start of the campaign, Gronk was very much geared towards a kind of nature theme because at this point he was still with his old god.
Yeah.
The god of steading.
Mm-hmm.
And who had this interesting idea of like the Song of the Ogier.
Yeah.
And how it was like a tale. We discussed it, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was like a story of how the Ogier began and how in order for the steading to survive, the god must be protected in a way to be like remain hidden.
Wow. So you actually knew a bit about the theological rules of the world long before we did then?
Yes.
Wow.
Gronk would have been aware of this.
Yes.
I can't believe you kept it so tight-lidded the whole time.
I mean, if I revealed the Ogier's secret, you know, could have been problems for the Ogier.
Yeah,
and I guess so. What was the god's name?
Do we give it a name? I think it's just the. Did we give it a name, Christian?
He was basically just known to you as the Tree Father.
Yeah.
And he was effectively kind of like a nature god, but more specifically the god of the Ogier. And I guess again, borrowing from Robert Jordan quite heavily, there are steadings in his world which are kind of like areas, like isolated groves that are magically protected. And my reasoning for why they are in my world is that there is a god, the god of the Ogier, who is able to do that, and so kind of creates these pockets of protection from other gods' magics. And the reason why he was the only god to survive the kind of the thundering that occurred, the big kind of calamity that destroyed the Mishari Empire, was because he was in his steading at the time. And so the kind of the Ogier have like a duty to protect
he survived it because he was a doomsday prepper.
Pretty
he
much,
built a little bunker, filled it with baked beans, and hid inside.
Yeah, and then the Ogier just take after that because they almost never leave their steadings.
That's perfect. Next character, it's an Ogier that wears a tinfoil hat, and
he's bringing.
You can't give me any of your wheat. It's poisoned. they put something in the water.
That'd be a good character.
I just imagine Alex Jones shaped Ogier.
Beautiful. Well, I mean, God, how did Gronk's story progress? I mean, after the Battle of Brindle, we had him and Blum bonded over nature, but just as Blum became more druidic, Gronk became less druidic.
Yeah.
Because we met the White Cloaks.
There was before that though, we had the Dwarven city.
Yeah, because there is this is when Gronk got his belt and really went off the rails in terms of
that's
power.
right.
Yes.
Man, you fucking love that belt.
Yep, my prized item until it was robbed from me.
Yeah. Turns out when you try and take out a crime syndicate in 1 hour by yourself, it does back.
Yeah, but that's a story for later. That's a story for later on in the arcs. The Dwarven settlement in general. Well, we ran into a band of dwarves.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting in a canoe with them, and they were saying to us, "Oh, we need your help with this. Our city has been overrun. Can you please help us take it back?" It was by bandits, wasn't it? And then so we
Yes.
decided to go back towards there. And then we devised a whole plan where we sent half of us invisible, and then we ambushed them.
Yeah.
And then we took hold, and then we found a secret passageway to the underground.
Yeah.
Where we found the true Dwarven kingdom, which had been buried.
Yeah.
And then we ran into the two villains, which I don't know if you've previously discussed.
Yeah. So to give you context, Felix is not one of our 3 listeners. So he does not know that we have actually recapped the whole of the campaign. But it's interesting because you're picking up on details that I guess me and Nick had forgotten, because I didn't remember you guys going invisible.
Yeah, we went invisible before it. We had an entire discussion about pretending that I was an orc.
Oh,
which by the way wouldn't have helped because they were hobgoblins.
They weren't orcs. Okay.
And then we got to the underground, and then obviously we ran to the Blue Spear and Bane, as you previously mentioned them.
Yeah.
And then at that point, there was a major shift for Gronk, because Bane had realized that my magic was of a divine nature.
Yeah.
And so realized that all the gods hadn't been taken out.
Yes.
Really?
And
Wow.
so that's what started we need to save Gronk's god.
So you were part of the reason we were in such a, you had realized that this was happening, but you didn't sort of, I think you did mention that your god was in trouble.
Yes.
But we didn't really know, because we didn't know how the gods work. We didn't really know what the consequences and the sort of, of that would have been.
So technically, I didn't really know, because all I knew was while I was fighting him, once I used my magic against him, so I used the Divine Smite, he realized, and then he went, "Oh, we didn't kill them all," or something like that. And then that's why Gronk was in quite a rush to go and get the sword, so we can defeat the Dark One and the Blue Sphere and all of them.
I see. Fascinating.
But then obviously, that took a shift.
Yeah. When you guys got to Ariosk, do you mind? We'll kind of like speed through the Arios section, but get to the what made you want to go down into the pit?
The pit?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really have a choice. I failed the wisdom check, so I was charmed into going to the pit. I mean,
you were charmed to a certain extent, but your allies didn't help. That's for sure.
Initially, I was interested, and then I realized this is not the best of ideas. When I realized how far these steps went down. But at this point, I was too far gone, and I just couldn't stop myself.
You committed too far.
Yeah, and then Gud and Holger, we all went through to the end.
Oh dear. Yeah, you followed him down. That was the tragic and sad end for Gronk. Although, he had recently been crippled, had his things stolen. He had a rough time in Arios, Gronk.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best time. But I remember when Gronk died, there was a big part about Christian asked me, "Oh, what are your last words before Gronk passes?" And then I said, "Oh, which god does he see?" Because I think we should touch on this about the Dawnfather and how Gronk came to shift his oath.
Yeah. Yes. So before going to Ariosk, I've skipped ahead here, kind of in my eagerness to talk about the Gronk's death. You guys had kind of returned to Greenhold after going through Volifair, and you had been captured by the White Cloaks, and it was during your interrogation that you were given an offer, a deal.
A deal after you had killed one of them.
Yeah.
Man, they really wanted you in.
But the deal was so they would set all my friends and me free as long as I committed to, going through the Dawnfather's wishes and stuff like this. And Gronk thought at this point he'd be able to use the Dawnfather's power and then eventually go and help his own god.
Mm-hmm.
And so he took this deal, and then he had a shift from Oath of Ancients to which oath was it? I want to say Oath of Glory.
Oath of Glory,
I believe.
Yeah, it was an Oath of Glory paladin.
Yes, that's the one he shifted to, and then he went on this big journey, and then it was an entire discussion throughout the entire campaign of whether Gronk sided more with the Dawnfather or if he sided more with the God of the Ogier.
Yeah, kind of a difference of like the religion you were born into versus the one you were kind of the mantle you were thrust upon you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, unfortunately for Gronk, we're never really able to see how that ended.
Yeah.
we don't know because Gronk is still alive. He's still there, down in the ways. We did see him at the end of my Tower one shot.
Yeah.
Is that canon?
Well, you did.
Just about.
You did, but the reason why is because Gronk is dead. And Gronk was drowned by this kind of primordial sea god, who is not part of the main kind of like the major pantheon of the world, but is kind of almost like part of the foil pantheon. So like, imagine the kind of the Titans to the Greek gods. And he drowned Gronk, Holger, and Gud, which is kind of ironic because Gud is literally a fish person, and raised them back up from the dead. And now they're kind of patrolling around as his kind of minions, undead minions.
Mm-hmm. Wow. The drowned heroes. Wandering the ways. That's pretty spooky.
The Dread 3.
Yeah, Dread. Oh, the Dread 3. That's a good name. They're like a band.
Yeah.
Now presenting the Dread 3.
Hear me out. They revise another person, and they're going to have a lead singer.
That's true.
Well, Absalom.
Spoilers, Felix. Spoilers. We're not economically.
Eviscerated corpse of Absalom. After Gronk died, I mean, we very upsetting, of course. But you, rather than having a new character, you took on the form of an NPC that we already had with us, Oz.
Yeah.
How did you feel about not making your own character, but by sort of taking one that was already there?
So the thing was, we were in a very awkward spot where we died. Because we were basically in the middle of this massive dungeon of sorts in the volcano. And so I didn't really know where to go with it, but I wanted to keep the connection with, obviously, because Gronk had the dragon, Fangs. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to keep some kind of connection to Fangs, but also like sneak my character in there and make it make sense rather than me just, running into them or something like that. So, and obviously I knew that we were coming towards the end of the campaign, and so I wanted to pick a character that was more intertwined to the story. And I feel like Oz was the best candidate for this, because I mean this entire quest we're doing is for him, and so I thought, why not play him as a character and explore him more?
Yeah,
it was something I had never done before as well. Playing because I mean, Gronk, Oz was more of he was more timid in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did seem like your sort of possession of Oz, you didn't really stray from the heart of the character. He didn't really change after you took after him. Just became more, I guess, less robotic, since he had a fully sort of aware individual behind him.
I'm notoriously not.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you
as before the NPC.
You provided
really...
a voice, but you weren't able to sort of fully do him all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I decided to play him, and it was quite a lot of fun. It was towards the end of the campaign. I didn't play him for that long.
No, but I mean, his effect on the campaign, especially campaign 2, was pretty large. I
Yes.
mean, we got Oz. I mean, I do want to talk about how did you sort of, I mean, when it came to Valdemar, did you sort of maneuver alongside Valdemar, or did you sort of just accept what he did and sort of like improvised when he did it?
So I feel like, Oz was a young man, a young king, and Valdemar was more like the snake in his ear, spreading poison. And
Right.
Oz would eat that all up. Anything that Valdemar said, Oz would usually agree with, which led to a lot of problems and ultimately his downfall.
Yeah.
But they were for the good part of like a decade. They were a good duo.
Yeah. Well, I think this is probably the best time to start talking about like the events and because I think Oz probably more than anyone, other than maybe Valimar, had the most direct impact on the state of the world between the campaigns. And I finally found my notes on everything that went down. So for context, between campaign 1 and campaign 2, there was a 40-year time skip, and there were kind of like I think 5 key events that occurred. There was the kind of the Milesian invasion led by led by Oz, not Odd. Then something called the Dragon Wars. It will become apparent when we cover it. Then there was the kind of the return of the gods more generally. And then there was the Great Schism, and then the reclamation of the Scar. And it was basically a couple years after the campaign had finished that Oz was kind of crowned officially, and then led an invasion host into Restria. I remember Fitz, you mentioned that this would be something that because I asked all the players what they plan to do at the end of the campaign. You mentioned that this was kind of your plan going forward after the fight. What was your intention behind it?
Well, I wanted to, because I've been helped by, Restrians, and obviously they'd lost their homeland. I aimed, obviously, to try and win it back through the invasion.
Yeah.
But also, ultimately, this would become his downfall in the end.
Yeah.
With this invasion, and obviously the complications with Valdemar and stuff like that. But I guess it was to help his friends mostly. It wasn't really a political aim, or Oz didn't need that land.
Yeah.
He certainly dealt with
he was trying to
a
repay
large
his debt.
threat. I mean, the Scar was still a huge threat at the time, and Oz basically reduced it to near nothing, at least over those decades.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was kind of the decision that led to Oz's downfall. Because for the listeners, effectively what happened is Oz lands in on Restria with his army, deciding to land in the city of Pertlov, which is like the heart of the Pertlovian theocracy, which is like the faith of the Dawn Father. Valdemar is a bishop of it, and kind of through Valdemar's advice, he lands there, joins up with a large White Cloak army, and then kind of begins to conquer what was the Kingdom of Racia. And then after that, then kind of sets his sights on the Scar. Well,
I think what really got him killed was allying with the Penya here, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And it was after he kind of set his sights on the Scar. He kind of conquered it, but was having repeat with Voluthyr, largely being that any kind of forces he set there for a long period of time would quickly become corrupted, and he kept having to kind of flush them back out. And so he was approached by the Penya here that they had a solution, and he made a deal which Valdemar did not like, and kind of held against him and resented him for years, which then leads to Oz's death in the Dragon Wars, which is kind of after this formation of the Empire. Oz kind of went through a series of invasions into the neighboring countries, largely Argia and kind of Muria, to kind of like consolidate his land. And Valdemar gave the Argians a blueprint to a weapon that could kill a dragon, and they basically shot Oz out of the sky.
Damn.
Yep. So I think the way you could sum it up is initially it was to help his friends and stuff like that, and then to reduce the scar.
Yeah.
But then obviously he bit off more than he could chew in a way.
Mm.
He wanted more. It was that greed that really got the better of him towards the end.
Ambition.
Yeah, and that was more so his downfall. I mean, I feel like that's common of most rulers.
I mean, certainly ones interested in conquest usually dying somewhere on the battlefield. But yeah. Now, you said that Crawford... Sorry, that was what I was going to talk about. You said that Osmond had the biggest effect in the world. I disagree. He had the biggest effect on Restria.
Yes.
But Crawford has had a profound impact on the world.
Yes, yeah. As discussed in last episode, Crawford's unleashing of that undead dragon is a big problem.
Potentially cataclysmic.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was running this, when you came to me to talk about Crawford, you were like, "Oh, Nick, can I just have a Vorpal Blade?" I was like, yeah, okay. And then I thought for a second, actually, Chris might get really salty if I just give his brother a proper Vorpal weapon. Okay, you can have a Vorpal like letter opener. So you started with like a super sharp magic blade. And I don't know what it was. You playing a posh character was some of the greatest, play I've ever seen. Oh,
he was one of the most fun characters I've ever played.
I mean, I got it in the first session. You had the townspeople baying at your heels. No, it's not baying, like bowing to your whim, along with your two companions.
Yeah, so Crawford is like, the way I can sum up is he was a true politician. You know, I mean, his backstory was he was in the court of Abram III, and then after complications and disagreements with him, quickly got given the worst position. And he got given the Minister of Supernatural Affairs. And so he was sent to deal with this fog in the first place.
I love that. Oh, we need to do a one shot in the Supernatural Affairs. I imagine it's like a really shit version of the Ghostbusters. Like it's a small department down in City Hall. It's like the basement.
Yeah.
It's just the Men in Black, but they're all awful.
Yeah, it's like the really like God. MI13.
But he'd showed up, and he was this you could tell immediately by the party meeting him shouting at his servants, as he wasn't used to these kind of cold conditions, or just conditions in general where he didn't have personal servants or slaves, and he immediately was shouting around the inn and stuff like that. But he made quite the impression of the party, I'd say. Yeah, these people who are, I mean, Generickson, obviously, his most loyal companion,
true soldier, true guard,
true man of the people, and Crawford really took advantage of him
in many
by
ways,
using him to connect himself with the. Crawford always had this issue where he couldn't reach the ordinary man. He was able to manipulate the elite. He was never really able to the ordinary farmer, the guy who worked his ass off for 40 years. Crawford never lifted a finger in his life. And so he could never really get through to him. And Generickson, after that amazing speech in the town centre, he just thought, this man is destined for great things. And by great things, I mean fulfilling my ambitions. And so he kind of took him under his own wing.
And in many ways, I guess Janelle really became your top guy.
Yes, he's very much Crawford's top guy. And then Ricardo as well. Ricardo was very skilled with a sword, very useful in case I got in trouble.
Yeah.
Also, in case some other members of the party, Calrad, started to attack me, Ricardo could have definitely protected me. And so, Crawford and his two knights were able to accomplish a lot. just right at the end, they betrayed him.
They betrayed him. I like that's probably true to his reasoning of the situation.
Right to the end, where Crawford had achieved all power.
Well, Crawford had made a deal with Null. Null's not the worst god to make a deal with because he's fairly good in his word and he doesn't really like to mess around.
Yeah.
Very cut and dry. And you had gotten the Null's crown off Apophis, the Minotaur.
Yeah.
And once you got the crown, I mean, I gave you, that was a pretty powerful artifact. If you had survived there, we would have seen Crawford again. But you brought back a Dracolich prophet. So this was an ancient dragon who had become a Dracolich, meaning that he was a real fucking strong. But he was also the avatar of a god, which makes him even stronger. Which isn't great. The party almost died completely to your barrage of hits, but you were outnumbered. And they did manage to bring you down to 0 and then finish you off with the Holy Avenger. But Crawford did make the deal with Null, and he did succeed. So Null was true to his word. He brought Crawford back into Undeath. And now he roams as a Doulahan, which I think there was a bit of confusion on what a Doulahan was. It's a headless horseman. So you're like a sort of undead general, essentially. I always wondered, with this newfound freedom from living constraints, what would Crawford have done?
I mean, I assume he probably would have. I think he would have definitely sought revenge. But I think
his
first,
kill the king.
Sorry.
So
his plan was to get revenge eventually on the people that caused or killed him in the end. Genericson and Ricardo, his traitors. However, initially, I think he would be hunting down the ministers in other positions, which robbed him of his title. And then eventually, try and get to the king. I think that would be.
The Lamentia is like going through an undead invasion, like a political undead coup.
Yes.
Damn.
That's what he'd be doing.
That's like proper Ice Crown Arthas level scheming.
But
we're gonna get to Lamentia. It's just gonna be this wasteland. Blimey. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of Crawford was Livingstone and your relationship with dwarves.
Yes. Yeah, dwarves. So, Crawford hadn't really made the best impression with the dwarf he met at the item store.
No.
When he was trying to, get that super rare protection amulet.
Yeah.
And the dwarf really wanted his Vorpal letter opener in return. And then Crawford quickly remembered in his head, oh, I shouldn't be giving Livingstone to dwarves. Because that's how this issue came about in the first place. And then so...
Wait, what? what was Crawford's reasoning there?
So basically dwarves, yeah. They were the root of all problems. In this area. Okay. Durek Far, dwarf.
Was he a dwarf?
No, he wasn't.
He was. I mean, Crawford.
He could have been.
Crawford thought he was a dwarf. Okay. And so Crawford wasn't going to give the dwarfs the power again, especially half people. The ability again to cause another supernatural event. He was ultimately there to do his job as the minister. And the dwarf really did not like him. He threatened to kill him.
Well, there was a bit of a communications breakdown. And when you refused the deal, he got very uppity, and you responded in kind. And it just sort of devolved from there into death threats.
Yeah. And then later on, this really did not continue well. I mean, at one point he did get the other dwarf to bake him a cookie.
Yes,
You know, so
a poisoned laced cookie.
So he was
going to feed to Ricardo's new squeeze.
Yeah, you know, so he was popular with some dwarfs, you know, some not, but they weren't his favorite kind of people. You know what I mean? It's probably the only time Crawford's probably ever interacted with dwarves in his life.
Okay.
I mean, most likely, considering the way he treated them the first time.
Definitely.
Oh man, he Sorry, I was just saying, like you playing a posh character was something that I don't think I could ever get bored of it. It was so funny. I sort of felt a sense of tragedy when your next character was the opposite of a posh person.
Yeah. Let's talk about. I guess this is. I mean, we talked a little bit about all the characters, but going into campaign 2, I think we should start with why did you pick the class that you picked? And you can be honest, Felix. This is
I only picked barbarian because we needed a tech.
and Felix, just to jog my memory, how many barbarians have we now got in the party?
We now have 3. You know, yeah. Initially, I was going to play something like I think it was either I was going to play Bard, or I was going to play Sorcerer.
Right?
Yeah, Sorcerer or Bard. Or Warlock. I had a Warlock preps as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really shifted it last minute to play Barbarian.
Yeah, and I think you were approached by another player to be related, to have characters.
I approached him.
Okay.
Yes.
So you really stimulated that conversation.
Yeah, I stimulated that conversation.
Yeah.
So I approached Seb and I was like, Seb, do you want to play my brother? And Seb returned, that sounds amazing, but I want to play a woman.
A curious choice from Seb of all people.
And then I was like, sure, Seb, you know, whatever floats your boat, you know.
You know, he's
no pun intended, whatever floats your boat. And then we formed this character.
What do you mean by no pun intended? Whatever floats your boat.
What was that pun relating to?
Or Navy, you know, he's in the Navy.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow, that was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
I was lost there.
No, okay. That makes sense.
It makes sense now, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I approached Seb and we spoke about character's backstory, and we said we wanted to be from this small town in Novogorsk. We were both from our father was Old Dorothy, our mother Novogorsk. Yuri spent the majority of his young life, from 18 to 28, in the army.
Yeah.
And then he had this major incident where he was. I mean, what we found that he was turned into a lichen.
Yeah.
And then on his first transformation, he was on a mission, and he transformed, killing everyone else in his group. Apart from one person.
To his knowledge.
To my knowledge, I thought I'd killed everyone.
Yeah.
And then I had walked away from it, and I had got a letter from my sister Zenobia, who said that she'd been put a curse on her. And so Yuri saw the opportunity to run away from his problems.
Yeah.
And also try and help his sister. And
that must have been a really shit year for Yuri. Like the loss of everyone that he was a comrade with, and then his sister being cursed.
Yeah.
I mean, the adventure, what a reprieve.
Yeah, and then his sister walks up to him, and almost the third thing out of her mouth is, "Oh, by the way, our younger brother dead."
Oh yeah,
that was
my favorite sibling.
What was even your brother's name?
Alexei.
Yeah,
Alexei.
That's my next character, Alexei.
Wanted to be a soldier just like Yuri.
Yeah. You've got his dog tags. You
Zenobia's not that bad, you know.
Yeah. Well,
I feel
Yuri,
like, I feel like she's progressed, you know, from the start of the campaign.
Yeah.
well, she definitely started evil, and I don't know if she's grown or she's just been forced into a position of goodness,
Yeah.
given the other members
Yeah.
of the party.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at our party, a solid 50% is evil.
I mean, it's really
Ooh.
changed. I think it's a little. I mean,
Yeah, I
at the
think-
start we had Herschel,
Yeah.
who was very, very lawful good.
Yes.
And then was very, very lawful evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of
Still
a
like
yin
that.
yang, yeah. But Zenobia was quieter and like her evil was a slow burn
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we've had Absalon, which
his evil was a bit more random.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then who else would you say was evil? Then I
Oh, I
Well,
feel
we
like
had Galai.
Galai, yeah. Galai was evil.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yuri to an extent, I'd say.
Really?
No, I wouldn't say it was. I said more neutral, to be honest.
Well, he was certainly bloodthirsty.
He you know, he has good wills at heart, but he's not afraid.
He's not too
Squirmish.
not too squirmish.
Yeah, he does what he's got to do to get the job done.
Mm.
And if that means sacrifices are made, then sacrifices are made. You know, but I feel like that's become less so as the campaign's got on.
I mean, it certainly was true during our Ferron arc.
Yeah, well, early Ferron, I think.
I mean, in the early Ferron, you gave yourself. I mean, first of all, you were walking around the city wearing a stupid mask, because you were a wanted man.
Yeah,
Which got us in trouble. Which got us in trouble when we walked in. They were like, why are you wearing a mask? No reason. Take your mask off. No. Okay, you're getting arrested. Take your mask off. No. Okay, you're going in the stocks.
I pretended to be a religious.
Yeah, you without any knowledge of the religion at the time, you just started saying things that you thought sounded were religious.
Yes.
Oh,
Just ridiculous.
Well, I guess probably that's a good point to start with, like the first session. If we got just a little bit more time, is that kind of moving in that the party kind of all gathered together, and you first arrived in the town of kind of Gorovia to begin the campaign. Yuri, you had just the mercenary group Yuri was on the run for was called the Sturmklingen. But their kind of inspiration was the Varangian Guard of kind of Constantinople. They were these group of kind of like Viking inspired people who moved to this other kingdom and worked as kind of mercenaries and guards, and were paid quite handsomely, rewarded with land. And so Yuri kind of joined up following the kind of tradition of his forefathers. And you had kind of arrived into Gorovia waiting to meet Zenovia, and Eunuch were arriving into Gorovia to kind of collect arms. Correct?
Yes, that's right. Herschel was a sort of traveling preacher who collected donations and arms, and in return, he performed medical services when he arrived. You know, he was a healer. He had spells, and he had good medical training. He was very read up, and so that was how they met. You know, I think maybe he had sort of approached. I can't remember if they approached each other, but Herschel certainly was very keen to get rid of the threat to Gorovia. And I suppose Yuri was there for the bounty?
Yes. So all of you guys had kind of... I think Yuri had agreed to meet Zenovia in Gorovia. And Herschel, you were there to go collect arms. And I think Brimley knew about this bounty. And there were rumors of this monster roaming around Gorovia, and you guys were kind of hunting that down. And I think Absalon was there because he wanted to perform at the inn, being the notorious bard that he was. And then Coolius had joined because he wanted to kind of find a solution to this issue, and thought that in some way this monster might be related to the issue that he had in his grove. And then who else do we have in the party? I think that was everyone at the start, right?
Yeah, Absalon,
Yeah.
Zenobia, Yuri, Herschel, Brimley, and Coolius.
Yeah,
Goliath.
and Goliath.
Yeah, but Goliath joined a bit later.
That was later. Yeah, session
Yeah.
2.
So,
Yeah.
so in session 1, you guys are kind of arriving as a group. You kind of all met up in Ferron and then took a kind of a cart together, banding together for safety, which is very useful because you were almost immediately attacked by goblins.
Yes.
Which I feel like is the way 90% of my campaigns begin, except from the last one. But to be fair, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Goblins are amazing at level 1. You know, right, guys?
I mean, certainly,
Yeah.
they gave us a few sort of squishy enemies for us to really show off our classes. I think it's very useful to have some minions to show off a bit. You know, you want to feel good before you get absolutely wrecked by the boss.
Exactly.
Of course, Poacher wasn't with them back then. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it in another podcast episode. But Herschel got eviscerated by some birds, and it was Absalon's fault. We can all agree on that. And the party then met the mercenary Poacher. And I think Yuri and Poacher got along quite well. They were both soldiers. And actually, they had similar backstories.
Yeah.
So, whilst Yuri lost all of his people, and now it turns out it wasn't his fault, the same thing happened to Poacher. Because when Poacher arrived at the place where his mercenary company, the Mud Knights, had been ordered to go to, you know, they'd been hired, someone had set off a magical trap of some kind, some device, that pulled them into the ways and essentially killing all of them, but merging all of their consciousnesses into a single person. So they became a sort of jigsaw human that lived in the ways for a bit. So he also lost all of his people. I mean, to a lesser extent, given that they're kind of not dead. Yeah. But what that means for us is that, I mean, Poacher understood Yuri's... He didn't really understand why Yuri handed himself in, but he did understand Yuri's sense of duty and his sort of mercenary and soldier-like philosophy towards things. Certainly more than Zenobius.
True. I feel like they had, they hit it off. Definitely straight away.
I mean, one of the first things we had was meeting the hag.
The hag. We got very split opinions on the hag. In the party.
I mean, it went great for us.
Yeah, it was great. You know, I got a magical eye to replace my destroyed one by a manticore falling on my face.
I mean, of all the party members, Yuri must have the most injuries.
I
think I got the most really bad ones.
Yeah, I think Absalom is probably close.
I think he's got one of the most severe injuries, being dead.
Yeah, sure. I can't be that one.
But to give context to the viewers, we play D&D 5e, but we've in this campaign we've really started using an injuries take, which is effectively you get an injury whenever you're knocked unconscious or you're hit by a nat 20. And there are these long list of injuries that you basically I get the players to roll on. And so far, I don't know how you guys have felt about them, but I think it's a wonderful addition to D&D. It makes combat a little bit more tense.
It does, but we haven't had any for a while.
Yeah. Well, I think, to be fair, I might have forgotten to do it when they get nat 20s. And then other than the nat 20s, because you guys get level 5 now, it is it's rare to be knocked down.
Yeah. I mean, the only person who really gets knocked down a lot at the front lines, which is Yuri.
Yeah.
To be fair, I've only been knocked unconscious, I think, twice this entire campaign. 3 times, actually. 3 times I've been knocked. Which, I mean,
hang on.
first one was against that monster.
Yeah, the mountain. The big monster at the tower. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got poisoned because of that.
Mhm.
And then immediately after that, I got knocked down by the manticore, which gave me severe. I rolled 2 nat ones in a row.
Yeah.
I think I got severe brain damage,
Yep.
and then I also got the manticore horn fell on my eye when it was plummeting from 60 feet in the air, and that knocked me out and made me lose an eye, and that's why I had to go get it repaired by the hag.
The hag.
That was a pretty epic fight, and it was a great plan too.
Yeah, we will talk about this in I think the next episode when we'll cover basically the events that followed it in all kind of campaign went from Culius's to a pack of what amounted to lion cubs to Culius attempting to heal a goblin that the party that had attacked the party, but only making the situation worse, and the goblin dying.
Befriending the lion.
Yeah, befriending the wanting to pet the big scary lion.
Jesus Christ.
And then kind of the whole like dwarven arc where you guys went into the dwarven city and kind of solved that issue, and a little bit of the mystery there. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, looking back at it, I think the Faron arc that we kind of titled it as was quite memorable, in terms of like everything that went down and just how quickly it brought you up to speed as a group. Was there anything that you guys like kind of I don't know if this was there anything just from that was like the highlight of that arc for you?
I mean the prison. I think the main bit for me was I got in prison. There was a lot to do with my backstory.
Yeah.
And getting imprisoned by my old employer, and then sentenced to death, almost killed.
Yeah.
Sentenced to death, and then obviously my party members came and saved me.
You almost
that was probably the biggest part for me.
You almost did your best JFK impression.
Didn't realize this podcast was like that.
Sorry about that.
But
no pressure.
Yeah, that was probably the best part for me. I really enjoyed that combat. It was one of the best combats I think we've had.
Yeah,
there's a lot of planning into it, and obviously the crowd was quite interesting.
It was bloody tense.
What was it? What did you call it? The fray.
The fray.
Yeah, that was a thing we hadn't used before.
Yeah,
that was a rule. So Chris and I were talking about it, and we sort of came up with the idea that a crowd should more be like an environmental hazard.
Yeah, because we'd originally just out of context, like out of the game, I'd bought the I think it's the Dragonlance book from D&D, and they had this rule where called the Thray, which was like an area around the battle map that if you stepped in, you took damage. But I read it to Nick, and Nick, I mean, I think your response was, "That's cool, but it's not. It could be better."
Well, because I think that they had the idea where each like area had its own initiative, and it was like, well, why do we even need to bother having 20 initiatives for combatants that don't actively join the main character's fight?
Yeah.
So we sort of we had the idea where, if you're distracted in the fight or you enter into a certain area, people are in the fray. They will throw bottles. They will smack you in the face. Yeah. And it could be entirely by accident, but it's a dangerous place to fight.
Yeah.
And it also gave them that they had their own kind of like almost like lair actions where depending on what I rolled each round, they would either kind of constrict or expand the space that you could fight in, or they would kind of throw things into the area that wasn't the fray, or those in the fray would be kind of like pushed closer to the fight or pushed further back. Which when you guys were effectively fighting a combat against monsters that, well, NPCs that you effectively couldn't really beat in a fair fight, and your main aim was to kind of just get Yuri and get out of there. It added a lot of tension, I think.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting combat because it wasn't it wasn't a kill necessarily a kill combat which we're used to. It was more so retrieve Yuri and get out of there as soon as possible. It wasn't really, we're going to go and end this storyline now by killing the people that are imprisoning him.
Yeah, more of a capture the flag almost.
Yeah, kind of like that. It was a combat we hadn't really done before, especially an execution.
And I guess kind of maybe before we wrap up, looking kind of towards now and the current future, is there anything that you as a player, without giving too many spoilers, you're particularly looking forward to in the near future in the campaign?
In particular, I think it'd be interesting to learn a lot more about the newer characters like Asa and Kaikabad.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know a lot about them. But also go a bit more deep into Poacher, because you just told me some new information about Poacher, which I did not know about his backstory fully.
Well, what I want to know about Yuri is, like, how deep into the werewolf hole is he going to go? Because there are levels to lycanthropy.
Yeah.
At the moment, he's unsure. He's like making that decision of whether he wants to go deeper at the moment. Because he doesn't want to become a monster.
At the
if he can control it, he's happy to keep going. But if it gets to a point where he just can't anymore, he'd probably try to get it cured. But
I see.
It's a decision he's going to have to make. And whether he thinks he can eventually keep hold of it, or is he going to have to get rid of it for the greater good?
And you mentioned that you also might be interested in potentially kind of class swapping, just because the party is now kind of almost too concentrated with them. Is that something you're still kind of set in doing?
I'm looking at Samurai at the moment. The one I'm most likely to switch to, but I'm still a bit unsure about it.
Is that because Yuri's actually a massive weeaboo?
Well,
I don't know. The samurai class is pretty fucking OP.
He's a furry already, you know.
That's true. He's already one step above.
Just because I feel like this moment has to come up later in the campaign. Can I ask, are you ever planning to, hit the party with the line of like the Vin Diesel line mixed with the furry line, where you're like, I joined you as a bunch of ragtag groups, and now you're my pack/family. And then you become almost entirely motivated by family, and then inevitably the campaign becomes Fast and Furious.
I never really thought
about. Got to get the band back together for one last ride.
Maybe I'll use that at some point.
I mean, if we go down the Asa like horse route, we definitely could go that way.
Oh yeah,
true.
Everyone gets on their horse. We're galloping over the empty plains of Ariosk.
We all become horse girls.
Well, look, Asa's just
not the way I thought that was going to
go. Asa's just a horse boy looking for a bunch of horse girls to help him do horse things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, but I guess that's probably everything that I have for this episode. Is there anything else you guys feel like we should cover?
I think we did most of it, to be fair.
Did most of it. I don't know. What I do want to ask you, Felix, is you've never run a one shot, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah. Ever. No.
But would you be interested in running one?
Maybe at some point. I've considered it. I don't know if it'd fit into Christian's world, because I feel like my one shots would be really random.
I think it's fine, because we can always decide canon ad hoc.
Yeah. Canon is almost always decided like after.
Yeah.
I have considered
I mean, we just have to sort of edit out the Muhammad Gandhi's.
Yeah, exactly. if we follow the Muhammad Gandhi atomic fist route, it's literally just play what you want in the one shot, and then we'll sort out what's real and what's not afterwards.
Yeah. I would consider it at some point. Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be fun to do like at some point if Christian ever needs to take an extended break again.
Mm-hmm.
We should do like one person does a one shot a week or something like that. That'd be quite fun.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Do a round robin.
Yeah, that would be good. But yeah, at some point, definitely.
Wow, thoughts to think on. Thank you very much for joining us, Felix.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, thank you again for just kind of like going over Yuri, and thank you, Seb, and
Our
I'm
one
sure,
loyal and only listener.
yeah. Please give any notes in the comments about what we did wrong, Seb. I know there's probably quite a bit of information we've missed out. And just rib Felix as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Seb is not gonna rib me, because Seb knows I didn't make any
you didn't make any mistakes.
I didn't make any mistakes. No.
No.
Yeah.
And he knows that I didn't make any mistakes canonically.
Jasper,
Yeah.
lawful good.
Exactly.
That
Gronk?
and if you do leave,
No insane decisions.
that and if you do leave, if he does upset you too much, you'll just leave him and play a new character. Meaning that every time comes with a character that has family, they're inevitably not going to die, but leave him because he's too annoying.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
Exactly.
That's such an awfully dangerous precedent.
I just find a way of brainwiping him and then leaving. and then just doesn't have a backstory.
Seb's campaign 3 character is just a guy following after his dad who went out to get milk 10 years ago.
Oh god.
Jesus.
Well,
My character is it's one of Seb's siblings or maybe a spouse, but they've already broken up.
just awkwardly living together and adventuring because you've got to stay together for either the kids or
Constantly
the money.
arguing over rooms and inns. Who's
It's a beautiful
paying?
idea.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, thank you so much for listening and have a good one. Take care.
Oh.
Good night.